episode 1 maybe? I don't know. This will be definitely in the first 2 or 3 episodes. And boy, did I decide to bite off something that's flippin' huge. The Beatles Let It Be. What more can be said about it? Really what I'm going to try to articulate to the best of my ability is how does it sound different from 16-bit versus 24-bit. So I got this a couple years ago, right? This is the 50th anniversary edition. Giles Martin put it together, commissioned to put it together on behalf of the Beatles and the Estates. This is an album for me that when I was getting into this band, I was probably 10, 11, 12, something like that. My parents had it, they were fans. Actually my first introduction to the Beatles was probably Sgt. Pepper, right? My dad playing it. The White Album, I remember listening to that via 8-track in my parents' car on different summer vacation trips, sitting in the back seat of a 1976 Oldsmobile Tornado. It was like sitting in the back. The back seat was like a couch, and listening to. I still think the track changed over right in the middle of that song. I Will, if my memory serves right. But anyway, back to Let It Be. When I first heard it, I thought it was different. I'm like, this isn't quite like everything I'd been hearing. I was listening to, at the time, a lot of the Magical Mystery Tour and Sgt. Pepper's and the White Album. And as I started getting older, into 15, 16, I stumbled across this one. My parents didn't have it. I went out and bought it on cassette, stuck it in my Sony Walkman, and was like, wow, this is different. Just different, right? It sounds, it's not psychedelic, it was just different. So over the years, I've come to appreciate it more and more. And this particular 50th anniversary edition, to my ears, again, subjective, to my ears, I really enjoyed it. I liked what Giles Martin did with it. When Spector, got this project in 1970, it was an afterthought, and he literally put it together, I think, in about 2 or 3 weeks just to get it out there before he started working on George Harrison's All Things Must Pass album. So, I like what Giles Martin did with this. As a side note, I was listening to another YouTube channel, Norman Maslov, Normie, and he said something very interesting on one of his reviews. I think he was doing it in relation to the Revolver. Norman's a few years older than me. He's part of the baby boomer generation, and he made a statement, something to the effect of how he's been hearing it, and people of that generation have been hearing it for their entire lives, and how they like to, they're used to it. They're used to the way that the stereo separation was. Not a lot of center channel stuff at the time. But anyway, I took note of it, and I thought, for my ears, as a Gen X person, I've been hearing music differently, and in this case, I prefer the 50th anniversary edition. For the most part, I'd say that across the board. Yeah, for the most part. But anyway, back to this. So overall, I got the box set here, and I ripped the CDs, the 16-bit CDs, ripped them, and then served them up on the system. Again, we talked about the system in the introduction video. For quick recap purposes, my system is, I'm listening to it through the computer into a Denafrips Aries 2 DAC, through a Rotel A11 tribute receiver, and out the Wharfdale Denton 85th anniversary edition speakers. Boy, it sounded great. It really sounded fantastic. I'd say that the overall soundstage, and again, that's really what I'm trying to share, is it's the best thing that I like about music, is I'll sit there and close my eyes and listen to the band in front of me. The separation and the depth and the crispiness. We'll get to that in a second. So you can't go wrong. First and foremost, you cannot go wrong with the 16-bit version. It sounds fantastic. It's going to sound, on a good system, it's going to sound really, really, really good. Soundstage in this case, on the CD version, the soundstage is about 2 to 3 feet left or right outside the speakers. Center channel is sitting about 1 to 2 feet right above the speakers. And occasionally you'll get something down, about a foot below the speakers as well. My soundstage here, I got the 2 speakers separated about 10.5 feet apart, and I'm listening to it right there, 10.5 feet away. Can't go wrong. It's a really good sounding CD. All the instruments are absolutely separated. You do get that holographic sense. It sounds like, I wrote here, so the 16-bit sounds like you're kind of in the studio, right? You're sitting by the mixing board. If you watch the Get Back special, I'll be referring to that from time to time because there's just a lot of knowledge there that anyone can get. You'll actually see the mixing board in where they'd go and listen to the music right after they cut a song. But that's the sense I get from the 16-bit is you're in the studio. You're just behind the glass, listening to it. Now, I downloaded the 24-bit from HD Tracks. Been downloading music from them now for I don't know, probably about 10 years or so. And I probably got maybe, about 50 titles right now that I've downloaded the high-res files. In this case, I think it's 24-bit, 96K. What do you hear? What's the difference? It's measurably different to me. Instead of being in the control room, you're in the room. You are in the studio with these guys. Or you're on the roof sitting right in front of them. And we'll get to close your eyes what the image is. The songs that were recorded on the roof, it's like you've got a front row seat sitting right at the edge of that building. It's incredible. Where the soundstage on the 16-bit was 2 to 3 feet outside the speakers, this is 5 feet outside the speakers. In case in this left channel here, it's literally coming from outside my office. The height is 5 to 6 feet higher than the speakers themselves. And you can see the height right here. It's literally coming from above my ceiling. The depth is definitely more 3D. You're getting not only space of instruments, but you're getting from left to right. You're getting depth. There's a song I'll talk about here in a minute where you can see in your mind's eye Paul saying something and then moving back away from the mic. It's crazy. Things are crispy. That's what I wrote. Harder edges. So think of like that first HD TV you got, that 720p versus 4K. That's really the difference that I'm hearing in this. You can see the guitar strings, right? You close your eyes, you can, not only do you see the guitarist, but you see the guitar strings vibrating. I wrote this down. It's think of just much more air and space. What the 24-bit is allowing you to feel as much as hear, but feel is that space, the space around you, literally being in the room on where the stuff was recorded. And the other thing I'll just say here is, man, Ringo is all over this album. I didn't hear that before. Ringo, he gets knocked for his drumming by people who just don't know or don't care. But man, he is all over this album doing some incredible things, and we'll go through this. This particular one, because it's a bit more passionate for me, I'll try to put the things in here so you can skip through, but I'll go over a couple things through some of these songs and what I'm hearing differences and what you should look out for that I wasn't hearing in the 16-bit version. And I'll refer back and forth, but yeah. So let's get on to the first song. Two of Us. If you watched the video of the Get Back special, this was one that they had tried 6 ways from Sunday. They had recorded it everywhere from the Twickenham studios to the soundstage, rather, to Apple Studios. The final take, it's important for the Beatle folks here. The final take was actually on January 31st, 69. It was the last day of filming for that particular project. It was the day after the rooftop concert, okay? You know, right away, John coming 18 inches above the center image, 18 inches high. Phase one, in which Doris gets her oats. Bang, right there. And then right from the left comes Paul's guitar intro, you know. You've heard it a million times. You know what it sounds like. And then right on the right-hand side, John's guitar comes in. And then Paul and John's vocals fill in right from the center. You know, you can actually, if there was a mic there, they'd be left and right of the microphone. Ringo's drums are right behind center, so they're right behind the vocals, but they're spread out. You know, you're going to hear the snare and the hi-hat mostly there, but the rest of the drums it's full. It's a full kit. And then George is, you know, he's playing that 6-string bass. He's in the center as well. A little bit in between Ringo and the vocalists. Okay, so there's depth there, and you're not getting that much depth. You're getting some depth on the RIP CD, but you're not getting the amount of depth that you are obviously on the 24-bit. It's full sound. Soundstage is big. It's not the largest soundstage on the album, but it's big. It's about, you know, 3 feet left or right of the speakers. Quite enjoyable. I mean, you never heard it like this before. I've never heard it like this before. You can feel the drums. I wrote it here at the 3:02 mark, the 3 minute and 2 second mark. Man, there's a great cymbal decay coming out of the right. And then Paul's intro again on the left, and when he says, you know, we're going home. So great song, such a simple song, and it sounds, you know, it sounds fantastic. Can't say anything bad about it. You get definitely more out of the 24-bit version for sure. Dig a Pony. Next one, final take, 30th January 69. On the rooftop, this was recorded. So they let the rooftop recording hit the final album. Starts at the 7th, starts out where John's, you know, got that sniff, sniff, sniff. It's cold outside. A January day, probably about 40 degrees, 42, 43, raw, cold. And then you hear, and I've never heard this before, or never paid attention to it, maybe just sitting here and listening to it with only my ears. It sounds stupid, right? But, you know, closing your eyes and just really listening. You hear George count it in a 1, 2, 3, and bang, Dig a Pony comes in. John comes in front and center, 12 inches above the speakers, right in the center image. John's guitar comes in on the left, George's comes in on the right. That's going to be pretty much exactly how they were set up on the rooftop, by the way. If you've seen the Get Back special, that's how it's portrayed coming right out of the speakers. Paul on bass is center, it's full, and a little bit back. In Ringo, again, his drums are center, and it's full out from there. You feel like, I wrote it here, you feel like you're in the room. There's space on this song, or on the roof. But there's space in this song that I've never heard before. You know, this is the one thing that I wasn't aware of. I read it in the liner notes here, and like, where's Billy? Where's Billy Preston on this thing? He was on the roof. He played with these guys on these recordings. Well, Phil Spector evidently, he mixed them out, and that's a shame. Evidently, on the Let It Be Naked album that came out in 2003, Billy's on that recording. You get a lot of depth with the backing vocals. You're going to hear, again, John up front, and Paul's backing vocals are back a little bit further, and you close your eyes, you can see it. Great. Across the Universe. This song was, yeah, I've liked it. I've liked this song. You know, who doesn't like this song? This one was recorded, actually, this version. Now, there's been a ton of versions of this song recorded, but this version was actually recorded on February 4th, 1968. So almost a full year before this Get Back / Let It Be project was being recorded. It was recorded in Abbey Road Studio 2, and then Phil Spector got a hold of it on April 1st, 1970, and added a lot of different layering onto it, and of course the wall of sound and all of that, put it into the album. So the high-res version of this, let me step back before. this soundstage is probably the biggest soundstage on the album. It's enormous. It's easily 5-6 feet outside, left or right. It's the tallest. It's coming out of my ceiling, never mind 18 inches above center line. Parts of it feel like they're sitting on the floor and they're coming up. This is the biggest soundstage period. You've got at the 36-second mark, you've got the chorus coming in, and it's just huge, and it swirls all around John. John is center. He's 18 inches above. John is 18 inches above the speakers, but it's like he's being held in suspension. The chorus and the strings are just floating around him. Music's all around, I wrote. At 114, the strings are much more pronounced, not louder, but defined. I never really, the strings are there, because that's what Spector does, but you really, you can see it. You can see the instruments. It's very holographic. This is one of the most holographic songs on the album, and the way they recorded it was different than any other song on the album as well. Couple tidbits about this song is it actually bumped Paul's Teddy Boy, which was slated to be on this album. It bumped it right off. Teddy Boy came out, I think, on his first solo album. John was never happy with this. He was, in one of his last interviews, if not the last interview in 1980, he just was never happy with the song that came out. However, in the liner notes, he was quite pleased about it in 1970. So, I don't know. Over time, John, I think, wanted to redo all of his songs. But that's Across the Universe. And, if you hear it in the car, on the radio, you hear it on a Bluetooth speaker. That's what we all come to accustomed to hearing. Hearing on this system, ridiculous. An absolute ridiculous recording. It's awesome. All right. I Me Mine. George's tune. Couple notes here. Recorded on 3rd January 1970 in Abbey Road Studios, Studio 2. So this was done a year later. It was take 16, and then the overdubs were added later. Maybe the overdubs were added in January, or January 1970. Regardless, the thing kicks on with the organ and the bass are right up front. George's guitar kicks in from the right-hand channel, and George's vocals are big, man. They are big on this version. They're coming right from the center image, about 2 feet above the tweeters of the speakers. You feel like you're in the room. The chorus, you can hear all the individual voices. It's, this song is good. It's not my favorite song on the album, but it's the best version I've ever heard. I wrote down here, great drumming. The first chorus leading in with the drums at the 25 to 39 second mark. Again, I've never heard it like this before. So, only George, Paul, and Ringo were present on this. I guess John was in Denmark at the time on vacation. The final work was done on this 2 weeks before the All Things Must Pass album started. Excellent mix, as it feels like you're in the room. It's going to be a broken record here. I'm going to say that quite often, but I Me Mine, it's again not the most popular song on the album. Love George. This version of it sounds fantastic, and I don't quite get that sense on the CD version, the ripped 16-bit version. We're gonna go to Dig It. All right, 5th song on the album, recorded 26 January '69 in Apple Studios. You're only getting about 15 seconds out of a 12-minute jam that these guys were doing at the time. If you remember watching the Get Back special. You're left Twickenham. You're now in Apple Studios, and Billy Preston's in there, and everybody's on their best behavior. The boys are having fun, and it's contagious. And this 12-minute jam that you can't hear on, again, the demos or the special CDs that come with it. You can get more of a sense there. So what you hear on the album, though, is 50 seconds of a 12-minute and 25-minute jam. John is center image. Bigger soundstage. The separation on this is pretty cool. Billy Preston is tickling those ivories on the organ. Paul's on piano. he on the longer sessions, he's got more vocals on it, but on this one little 50-second piece, you're not hearing anything from Paul. George is playing through a Leslie cabinet on this thing. What's that? Look it up. All right, you're getting you're getting a nice effect, and you can actually hear the difference quite a bit more on the 24-bit versus the 16-bit. Actually, George Martin, a little note here. George Martin gets credit for playing the shaker on this song. So George Martin plays the shaker on Dig It. And Dig It's really a filling piece for Let It Be. Where do we start with Let It Be? We've all heard the song Let It Be a cajillion times, right? In fact, you know, if you hear it on the radio now, you've heard it so often, you may want to just, you may, if it's not putting tapping your toe, then you're going to change the channel. Let It Be is what it is. Now, I wrote on the top of this thing, it's epic, and I've got a few notes here. And again, I'll put the dividers, I guess, in the timeline here. So if you want to skip all this information, go on to something else. That's fine. This started during the White Album sessions, evidently on 6 September '68. So it was during the While My Guitar Gently Weeps sessions, Paul was first found to be toying with this song on the piano. At the time, the engineer wrote ad lib on the tape box, and that's what was referring to this starting of the recording of Let It Be. In fact, it wasn't Mother Mary Comes to Me, it was Brother Malcolm Comes to Me, was what Paul was using as a lyric at the time. In January of '69, they thought this would be great for Aretha Franklin as a soul song. Interesting. I thought that was pretty interesting. I can see it. I don't know if Aretha ever sang it, to be honest with you. But anyway, that's what they had in mind when they were first recording this thing. The Let It Be version was recorded, the one that's on this album, was recorded on the last day, January 31st, 1969. So, Paul's piano comes in right in the center, just center left. It's big. This is a big song on this recording, on this 50th anniversary. Giles Martin, man, he put space in this song. Air all around. You know, this is the biggest difference between the 16-bit versus the 24-bit. You're hearing the piano, but you're feeling the whole flippin' room is there in your room. You can feel it more than hear it. Paul's vocals are a good 18 inches above center line in the of your speakers. So it's about 18 inches higher than the tweeter of your speakers. At the 52-second mark, when he sings "And When the Broken-Hearted People," right there, that's when Ringo comes in, hitting that hi-hat very delicately, right behind Paul. Paul's in the center, and right behind him, Ringo, man, like I said earlier, he's all over this album. Yeah, I'm getting like chills thinking about it now. You can hear, I didn't hear that before. It's awesome. It's awesome. It's tangible. You can feel it. You can see it. Close your eyes. You can see him just tapping that cymbal. At the 102 mark, John's bass fills in from center right. So right there, just off to the center, but on the right side of it. And then at the 132 mark, the horns layer in on the left and right, midline. So they are right at, I'd say, in my speakers right here, they're sitting in right between the tweeter and the woofer. Center line is where these strings are coming in. I'm sorry, the horns are layering in. My apologies. At the 158 mark is when George's solo kicks in. Now this solo has been a couple different solos. There was a single version of this song. It's the beginning of the solo, really, and it's not very elaborate. But George came in back on, did some overdubs on April 30th, 1969, for the solo that you hear on this record. And the solo comes in at 150, 4 feet higher than the center image, right there, 4 feet high. It's aggressive. He's got some dirt on that guitar. Man, it's worth the price of admission right there. I mean, sounds excellent, excellent. Coming out of that solo at the 230 mark, Again, Ringo's tapping that. He's tapping that center of the cymbal. He's just tapping it, and you can feel. Hell, you could see. It's like you can almost see the damn sound waves coming off of it. At the 2:53 mark, there's more of George's guitar coming in. Got a snarl to it this time. Yeah, it's a good song, man. These four guys are just all in their mid-20s, mid to late 20s, and coming up with this crap. My God, it's mind-blowing. All right. And then it's just at the end, right? We've all heard it before. It comes to a nice end, and then it leaves you just as it came in. It leaves you with all of this air and space. What a song. That's all I got to say about Let It Be. I said a lot, but you've never heard it until you've heard it on a high-res file on a decent system. Again, a modest system. And don't get me wrong, the RIP CD or the 16-bit version is pretty darn special too. But if you can get the high-res file, get it. You're gonna hear stuff you've never heard. Coming out of Let It Be, we've got Maggie Mae. This was recorded on 24 January 69 in Apple Studios. So kind of right after they got into Apple Studios, not too long after they left Twickenham. This song was actually sung at July 6, 1957. People should know that date, right? That is the day that Paul met John at when John was playing with the Quarrymen. I didn't know that. I didn't know that was Maggie Mae was one of the songs that was sang that day. I read it again in the liner notes. Thought that was pretty cool. This is only 40 seconds, I believe. It's crisp. It's in your face. It almost sounds like these guys having a couple pints. And they're just having a blast with it. It was an old skiffle song. It's crisp. If I hadn't already said that, you can feel it. You can see the hard edges. John's acoustics on the left, Paul's is on the right, and George plays. He plays the electric with the bass lines coming in center, I believe. It's just four lads playing around, fun, and you've never heard it like you've heard it on this album. Coming out of Maggie Mae, my favorite song on the album is I've Got a Feeling. It's a 50-50 collaboration between the two, a real true 50-50. John had been working on a song called Everybody's Had a Hard Year back in as early as 1968. And then Paul's been working on this I've Got a Feeling. If you've watched the Get Back special, you saw a lot of this song being crafted and born and eventually recorded. This was on the roof. Amazing that this was on the roof. Yeah, recorded on 30 January 1969. One thing I'll say about this, it was a cold day out there, evidently, and I'm a real crappy guitar player. But John being able to play, that riff on his Casino coming out, I mean, that's a finger stretcher, man. That's a tough one, and man, it makes the song for me, John's Casino. So John's Casino comes in from the left. It's right there. You feel like this is a song you feel like you're sitting on the roof 10 feet away from the band. John's coming in left there, starting the song, and then Paul comes in, his vocals come in dead center. At the 16-second mark, you hear Paul, this is what I was saying earlier, you actually see it, and you don't get this feeling at the CD level of resolution, but you do get it here. On the 24-bit version. At the 16-second mark, you hear Paul back away from the mic when he says, "That's right." And again, goosebumps. Just, it's what I get off on, is the soundstage. It's crazy. Then Ringo's drums kick in at the center. They're big. Right after Paul says, "That's right," Ringo comes in, and it's full. It's big. At the 29-second mark, you hear George's Telly arrive. Right there on the right, just like they were up on the roof, right? You've got Ringo right in the back. Paul's actually on the left, but the vocals are coming in on the center. I'm sorry, did I get that right? Paul's vocals come in center. At the 36-second mark, you got Billy's electric piano. I think it was a Fender Rhodes, if I'm not mistaken. He comes in with that riff, da 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 da. And then George comes in at the same time. So you saw in the Get Back special, it's a piano riff that Billy came up with, and George is mimicking it, and so that's where that came from. And it's coming in right from the again, same riff as Billy. George is coming in on the right, just like every other song that was recorded up on the roof. I mentioned the how the instruments are laid out. Ringo's in the back center. John's his vocals are right in the front. Paul's vocals are off to the left, right in front of Billy's keyboards, and then George is on the right. Paul's high pitched. All these years I've been wandering around, blah blah blah. What I never heard before is George is just his playing, his solos. He's got a solo in there. Man, it's tasty as hell on this, and it's perfectly heard on that Telecaster, that Rosewood Telecaster. Yeah, and it ends at the 125 mark. What Paul said, okay, so I'll back up a little bit. Paul, there's that area where the music stops and all you hear is George, wailing on that single string at the 125 mark. Paul said this quote, explaining it to George: "There shouldn't be any recognizable jumps. It's got to be like pain. Do anything like it's crying." End quote. Yeah, it fits that that note to a T. Good stuff there. 205 mark, John's vocals, Everybody Had a Hard Year, comes in center. And then Paul is just off to the side. And then at the end, John says "so hard" and claps his hands, and it's cold. You can feel how cold it is on this song. I probably mumbled and jumbled enough on this particular description. I get excited. It's my favorite song on the album. Do yourself a favor and listen to it on a decent system. But yeah, the only thing else I'll say about that is nothing like a casino with those P90s, man. If there was a dictionary on how to for me anyway, a dictionary on how to articulate what a P90 pickup sounds like on a casino, it's this song. All right, One After 909 comes next. This was written in the spring of 1960. Actually, I just was reading the new George Harrison not autobiography, but a biography, and it had the date in there. Yeah, this is one of the very first songs that John and Paul were coming up with when they were at Paul's house. I believe it was Paul's house. When they had nothing going on, they weren't getting gigs, they were just writing songs, and this one was one of them. They had to go back in time to find another song to put on this album. And the second day at Twickenham, George said, they should do it. This song was sounding good, and George was behind it. It was one of his favorites. Also a favorite of Astrid Kirchner from the Hamburg days. So there's another tidbit for you on this one. This was a song that was offered to the Stones. Did not know that. In 1963. Obviously the Stones took "I Want to Be Your Man" instead, but this was one of the songs that was offered to the Stones, and the Stones said no. This version was recorded on the roof on 30 January 1969, and then Spector remixed it in 23 March 1970. Again, large sound stage. This is a fun one. This is a fun one to listen to. More fun than I've had listening to it in the past. It was never a throwaway for me, but man, these four guys weren't so bad. And this song, you really notice it on. This song, they were a tight band, real tight, in sync, punchy. Yeah, the way they're set up is just like before. Ringo's in the back, Paul's vocals are on the left, with right in front of Billy's Rhodes piano. John's vocals are center in the left, and George's again hitting that telly off on the right hand side. Telly's ripping is what I wrote here, and articulate throughout. He's just surfing on the chugging rhythm. Man, George was he never overplayed it, which made him so good. He was riding it. He was riding that rhythm and just playing perfect notes on this song. And then Billy's everywhere on this song. So and it was, I wrote it down, it is a Fender Rhodes, and he's everywhere on the song. These 5 guys on the song were kicking it, man. Who would have thought? One After 909, just one of the highlights of this album. The Long and Winding Road. This particular version was recorded on 26 January 69, and then Spector got his hands on it on April 1st. Okay, Paul piano, John bass, Ringo's drums, and George is actually playing his acoustic through the Leslie cabinet, and Billy's playing the Fender Rhodes again. It's a wide soundstage. Maybe not as high as some of the other ones like Across the Universe, but it's wide. Compressed a little bit from up to down, but wide. The interesting thing here, let me just, is really, Ringo's excellent, very tasteful, delicate drums. He's pretty busy. You wouldn't have known it. I never really picked up on it before, but Ringo is all over this song. You gotta listen for it. In the high-res file, you can hear it. It's pretty magical. Magical, I can't believe I used that word. It is. All right, this is what Phil Spector added, all right? 18 violins, 4 violas, 4 cellos, 1 harp, 3 trumpets, 3 trombones, and 14 vocalists, all right? And the one thing that I thought was very cool with this is, the only thing I'll say is, we all know the song, but how all of those instruments play out on the left and right channels, respectively, is they raise and lower from time to time with the song, and it's a pretty cool. Again, when you got your eyes closed, it's a pretty cool thing to experience. All those instruments going up and down on either side of the stack next to you, right when you got Paul with his piano and vocals in the center. I thought that stuck out quite a bit, was the use of those strings coming in horns coming in left to right. So cool stuff there. For You Blue, George's song. The album version was recorded on 25 January 69. George did do vocal overdubs on 8 January 1970 at Olympic Sound Studios. Obviously, the song itself was recorded in Apple Studios. George was looking for a simple 12-bar blues song. This is pretty cool. This is what I got out of the Get Back special. Just a professional band. Totally. You forgot how many days they were hitting in Hamburg and back in Liverpool at the Cavern. I mean, these guys were a tried and true band who'd been doing it a long time. And they were all chit-chatting along, and then as soon as the sound room, behind the glass said, okay, we're ready to record, the light goes on, and George is in the middle of something, and he goes, oh, okay, and he counts it right in, 1, 2, 3, 4, bang. And they hit it, and this was the take. Crazy. George is center with his acoustic guitar. Ringo is more forward with his drumming this time. He's crisp, he's right there, giving George all the support he needs. This is the one where John always, watch the video, John is always saying, hey, we got to do George's song again, because John was getting off playing his Hawaiian guitar, his lap steel. I don't think he ever played one before, but they got one into the studio during these recording sessions, and right in the left channel, the Hawaiian comes in, and John was always trying to get more takes because he's having a good time playing it. So yeah, he's there. John's having fun. You hear more of everything on the 24-bit version rather than the 16. It's just, again, more in your face in a good way. More of everything. The song never sounded better, is what I wrote. Both versions are good. You're gonna get this sense on the 16-bit version as well, but the soundstage is just bigger on the 24-bit version. All right. Last one, Get Back. It's wide. It's a wide soundstage. It was recorded on January 27, 69, the final take at Abbey Road Studios. The genesis of the song started out as a protest song. Watch the special if you haven't already. It's cool. This is the one song that you actually got to see birthed. Paul's just riffing on his bass, and you saw how the song came to be. That was one of the coolest things in the whole experience of the Get Back special. Drums are center, Paul's vocals and bass right in front of that, John's guitar on the left, vocals right center for John. George's guitar comes out of the right, and Billy Preston's coming out of the left. Look, this song's all about rhythm. It's thumping, it's pumping, thundering bass on this thing. You get the sense of, John. So I wrote a couple things here. John's second solo at 219, you can actually see the damn strings on the Casino. You can feel those P90s. I mentioned it again on one of the earlier songs. It's exactly how you would. You close your eyes, you're right in front of the band. You've heard this song probably the most out of any other song on this album over the years, and this one you feel them. They're there. They're giving you a private concert right in the middle of your living room, your office, wherever you're listening to it. Big rhythm section, and what I wrote here is the cymbals are the most realistic I've ever heard them. Sounds silly, right? Yeah, you can see the cymbals vibrating after Ringo's hitting them. It is so crisp on this. And again, Giles, I don't know what he did, but he just in space. You've got a lot of space. 5 guys are pumping this song, and yeah, you just feel it. You get all that space. It's huge. This is a huge song. Yeah, really enjoyable. Final thoughts. Again, both the 16K. No, I had it right. 16-bit and 24-bit. You can't go wrong. They're both really good. Best listening experience that I've had. Again, listening to it on a modest system. Really enjoyed it. Personally, I like the 50th anniversary better than the 1970 release. That's just my opinion. Doesn't mean jack, but I enjoyed it better than the 70. Maybe it's because Giles got to spend more time with it. He was commissioned to do this. So was Spector, but it was almost an afterthought for Spector. You got to remember when when they did this project in January of '69, they were trying to shoehorn it in. They wanted to do a TV special, blah blah blah. The vibe in the room wasn't that good amongst the four of them. The original documentary, Let It Be documentary, was really about a band breaking up. Watch the Get Back one by Peter Jackson because they had a lot of fun too, and that was cool. But after this whole thing was done, it was shelved. It was literally shelved, and it did come out after Abbey Road, right? I think it was maybe 6 months later, 4 to 6 months after this. You Beatle freaks will exactly know when they started the Abbey Road sessions, but after this, they sat on it, did Abbey Road, and then Spector got his hands on this thing literally about 3 weeks before he started work on the All Things Must Pass album, and kind of rushed it through. Spectorized it, put his wall of sound on it. Again, the biggest difference that I got between the 24-bit and the 16-bit was air and space. You feel it, it's tangible. It's important too. I think, for somebody who loves soundstage, who closes their eyes and wants the band to give them a private show in their space. Is it worth it? Yeah, it's worth it. I mean, so these are a couple things as of 2 days ago. Second week of January 2024. The HD Tracks high res 24-bit 96K file. $17.98. If you want to get the vinyl, now the vinyl on this thing, the vinyl record, this thing was recorded on digital. It's a digital recording on the vinyl. You're going to hear different. I don't have it. I'm sure it's going to be different depending on the stylus that you have and the analog setup that you have. But the source is the same. So if the source is the same for me, I'm going to go with the digital version of it. And so on Amazon, you can get the vinyl record for $27.97. So again, the high-res file, $17.98 at HD Tracks. The Amazon record, $27.97. You can get the CD on Amazon for $10, $9.99. And if you want to download an MP3 file, I don't know the degree of quality of this particular MP3, but you can get it for $12.49. So do yourself a favor. Spend the $18 and go out and get the high-res file of this. Even if you got, like I did, even if you got the box set, in the box set, some of them come with a Blu-ray that does have 5.1 surround sound, which is cool, but it also has a high-res file. It's copyright protected. I could not extract it and rip it, so I just said screw it, and I went to HD Tracks and I just downloaded the 18 24-bit version of it, and it was worth it. It's fantastic. Wow, that was a long haul of an album that was probably tough for me to bite off the top. The battery's down, so I got to go. Thank you. All right, new battery. So anyway, if you made it this far, I really appreciate it. Really not quite sure what I'm doing, but it was fun. So hopefully I didn't offend you. And it was enjoyable for you as well. I'll try to get the lighting better next time. It wasn't so bright when it started because it was brighter outside, but up here in cold, flipping southern New Hampshire, it's getting dark quick. So yeah, that's why the lights have changed. So it's all a learning experience. Anyway, thank you, appreciate it. Yeah, put in the comments what you guys think about this album. Did was it one of your favorites? Did you come across it like I did and thought it was, it sounded different, but over time, did it grow on you like it grew on me? What are your thoughts on the 50th versus the original? And why do you like one or the other over the other? Does it have to do with, again, like Norman Maslov? Normie said, it's what he's been listening to his whole life in that format. And that's the way he appreciates it. Where, I'm a little bit younger and I hear music in a different way. But yeah, put in the comments, why do you like it the way you like it? And, any stories you want to share. I'm always curious to find out, how people first came across this album. This album was out when literally I wasn't born yet. This album came out, when the album came out, I was born. When it was recorded, I wasn't. So that's a story for another day. But again, I'll leave you with this. Take the time. Listen to it. Listen to the whole thing. Relax, grab your favorite beverage, close your eyes, chill out, because you need to. Otherwise, you'll drive yourself nuts. Enjoy it, all right? Take care. Thanks.